shares a name with one of Aragorn's nicknames. Be the first to answer correctly, get pinned to the top of the comments. We did it, Marquise. Here it is. Requested by you, Marquise Anderson, Super Mario 64. What was it, 4 times? 5 times? You asked for this finally. You got bumped to the top of the list for asking nicely. Here we go. Super Mario 64 is a 1996 platform game for the Nintendo 64 and the first Super Mario game to feature 3D gameplay. It was developed by Nintendo EAD and published by Nintendo. Super Mario 64 features 3-dimensional freedom of movement within a large open world based on 3D polygons. It builds upon the Mario tradition of gameplay elements, visual style, and characters. As Mario, the player collects power stars while exploring Princess Peach's castle and must rescue her from Bowser. Director Shigeru Miyamoto conceived a 3D Mario game during the production of Star Fox in 1993. Development lasted approximately 3 years, 1 on design and 2 on production. The high-fidelity graphics were created using the Nichimen N-World toolkit. The score was composed by Koji Kondo. A multiplayer mode featuring Mario's brother Luigi was cut, but rumors spread of his inclusion as a hidden character. As one of the launch games for the Nintendo 64, Super Mario 64 was released in Japan on June 23, 1996, and later in North America and Europe in September 1996 and March 1997, respectively. Featuring a dynamic camera system and 360-degree analog control, it established a new archetype for the 3D genre, much as Super Mario Bros. Did for side-scrolling platform games. Super Mario 64 received critical acclaim and is considered one of the greatest video games of all time. Reviewers praised its ambition, visuals, gameplay, and music. Although some called the camera system unreliable, it is the best-selling Nintendo 64 game, with more than 11 million copies sold by 2003. Numerous developers have cited Super Mario 64 as an influence. It was remade as Super Mario 64 DS for the Nintendo DS in 2004, and it has been ported to other Nintendo consoles. The game has attracted a cult following, and many fan games and rumors surrounding the game have appeared. Let's talk about the gameplay. Super Mario 64 is a 3D platform game in which the player controls Mario through various courses. Mario's abilities in Super Mario 64 are far more diverse than those of previous Mario games. The player can make Mario walk, run, jump, crouch, crawl, climb, swim, kick, grab objects, or punch using the game's controller's analog stick and buttons. Special jumps can be executed by combining a regular jump with other actions, including the double and triple jumps, long jump, backflip, and wall jumping to reach high areas. Super Mario 64 is the first mainline Mario game since Super Mario Bros. 2 to have a traditional health system. The life system from previous Mario games is kept, and Mario loses a life when his health is depleted or if he falls into a bottomless pit. When Mario loses all of his lives, the game ends. Underwater, Mario's health represents how long he can hold his breath, slowly diminishing while underwater and replenishing when he comes back up to the surface. The hub world takes place in Princess Peach's castle, which consists of 3 floors, plus a moat and a courtyard. The player's main objective is to look for paintings that bring them to courses. There are 15 courses in the game, each with 7 power stars power stars in the entire game. Each course is an enclosed world in which the player is free to wander in all directions and discover the environment without time limits. The worlds are filled with enemies as well as friendly creatures that provide assistance or ask favors. The player gathers stars in each course. Some stars only appear after completing certain tasks, often hinted at by the name of the course. These challenges include defeating a boss, solving puzzles, racing an opponent, and gathering 8 red coins. Collecting stars unlocks more of the Castle Hub world. Twice in the game, the player unlocks castle doors with keys obtained by defeating Bowser in special courses. Once the player gets at least 70 power stars, they can access the final level of the game, blocked by an endless staircase. There are many hidden mini-courses and other secrets within the castle, which may contain extra stars required for the full completion of the game. If the player returns to the game after collecting all 120 power stars, Yoshi can be found on the roof of Princess Peach's castle, who will give the player a message from the developers, accompanied by 100 extra lives. In absence of the power-ups, normally found in previous games, such as the Super Mushroom and Fire Flower, 3 special cap power-ups appear throughout many stages. The Wing Cap allows Mario to fly after doing a triple jump or mid-air dive, or being shot from a cannon. The Metal Cap makes him immune to most damage, allows him to withstand wind, perform on-land moves underwater, and be immune to noxious gases. And the Vanish Cap renders him partially immaterial and invulnerable, and allows him to walk through some obstacles. One-up mushrooms hidden in various places, such as trees, may chase Mario through the air or else fall to the ground and disappear shortly if not collected. The plot. The game begins with a letter from Princess Peach inviting Mario to come to her castle for a cake she has baked for him. When he arrives, Mario discovers that Bowser has invaded the castle and imprisoned the princess and her servants within it, using the power of the castle's 120 power stars. The power stars are hidden in the castle's paintings, which are portals to other worlds where Bowser's minions keep watch over the stars. Mario explores the castle for these portals to enter the worlds and recover the stars. He gains access to more rooms as he recovers more power stars, and once he gets enough, he breaks the curse of the endless stairs that blocked the entrance to the final level of the game. After Mario defeats Bowser in the final battle, he obtains the Jumbo Star, which gives him the Wing Cap, and he flies back to the castle. Peach is then released from the stained glass window above the castle's entrance, and she rewards Mario by kissing him on the nose and baking the cake that she had promised him. Development. In the early 1990s, director and producer Shigeru Miyamoto conceived a 3D Mario design during development of the Super Nintendo Entertainment System (SNES) game Star Fox in 1993. He considered using the Super Effects chip to develop an SNES game, Super Mario FX, with gameplay based on an entire world in miniature, like miniature trains. He eventually reformulated the idea for the Nintendo 64, not for its substantially greater power, but because its controller has more buttons for gameplay. According to engineer Dylan Cuthbert, who worked on Star Fox, no game titled Super Mario FX had ever entered development, but rather Super Mario FX was the code name of the Super FX chip. At the January 1993 Consumer Electronics Show, CES, where Star Fox made its debut, Nintendo's booth demonstrated a 3D polygon animation of Mario's head. Super Mario 64 was developed over approximately 3 years, with 1 design concept and approximately 2 years on production. Production began on September 7th, 1994, and concluded on May 20th, 1996. According to Miyamoto, most of the time there were approximately 15 to 20 people working on the game. Development began with the characters and camera system. Miyamoto and the other designers were unsure of which direction to take. Months were spent selecting a camera view and layout. The original concept involved the fixed path of an isometric type game such as Super Mario RPG, changing to a free roaming 3D design. Levels were sketched by course director Yoichi Yamada. He and the level designers then took notes on the key elements of each level. The game had mostly a free roaming design with some fixed path elements, particularly to coerce the player into Bowser's lair, according to programmer Giles Goddard. According to Peter Main, Nintendo's vice president of marketing at the time, the game had a marketing budget of $20 million. The campaign included advertisements on MTV, Fox, and Nickelodeon. The game was first run on an SGI Onyx emulator, which only emulated the API and not the hardware. To assist in making Mario's model, Yoichi Kotabe, illustrator and character designer for the Mario series, made a 3D drawing of him from various angles and directed the creation of the character models. The team placed high priority on Mario's movement, and before levels were created, they tested and refined Mario's animations on a simple grid. The first test scenario for controls and physics involved Mario interacting with a golden rabbit named MIPS, after the Nintendo 64's MIPS architecture processors. The rabbit was included in the final game. The developers tried to include a multiplayer cooperative mode whereby players would control Mario and his brother Luigi in a split screen, but could not make it work satisfactorily. To assist players with depth perception, the team positioned a faux shadow directly beneath each object regardless of the area's lighting. Assistant director Yoshiaki Koizumi, who created and animated Mario's 3D model, described the feature as an ironclad necessity, which might not be realistic, but it's much easier to play. Super Mario 64 is one of the first games for which Nintendo produced its illustrations internally instead of by outsourcing. 3D illustrations were created by Shigefumi Hino, Hisashi Nogami, Hideki Fuji, Tomoaki Kuroume, and Yusuke Nakano. Miyamoto's guiding design philosophy was to include more details than earlier games, using the Nintendo 64's power to feature all the emotions of the characters. He likened the game's style to a 3D interactive cartoon. Some details were inspired by the developers' personal lives. For example, the boos are based on assistant director Takashi Tezuka's wife, who, as Miyamoto explained, is very quiet normally, but one day she exploded, maddened by all the time Tezuka spent at work. In the game, the boos shrink when Mario looks at them, but when he turns away, they grow large and menacing. Super Mario 64 features more puzzles than earlier Mario games. It was developed simultaneously with The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time, but as Ocarina of Time was released by more than 2 years later, some puzzles were taken for Super Mario 64. Information about Super Mario 64 was leaked in November 1995, and a playable version was presented days later as part of the Nintendo 64 premiere, then known as the Ultra 64, at Nintendo Space World, then known as Shoshinkai, featuring 32 courses. Miyamoto had hoped to create more, possibly up to 40 for the final version, but the number was reduced to 15. According to Nintendo of America chairman Howard Lincoln, Miyamoto's desire to add more was a major factor in the decision to delay the Nintendo 64 release from critics. Christmas 1995 to April 1996. Nintendo President Hiroshi Yamauchi later commented, "Game creators can finish games quickly if they compromise, but users have sharp eyes. They soon know if the games are compromised. Miyamoto asked for 2 more months, and I gave them to him unconditionally." The audio. The music was composed by veteran composer Koji Kondo, who created new interpretations of the familiar melodies from earlier media, as well as entirely new material. Yoji Inagaki was solely responsible for the sound design, tasked with producing hundreds of sound effects. He and Kondo opined in an interview that music and sound effects were equally important. According to Inagaki, the average Nintendo 64 game had about 500 sound effects, and made comparisons to The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time and The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask, which had 1,200 and 2,000 respectively. Super Mario 64 is one of the first games to feature Charles Martinet as the voice of Mario, and the voice of Leslie Swan, the senior editor of Nintendo Power, as Princess Peach, who wrote the English text. The release. Super Mario 64 was first shown as a playable prototype in November 1995 at Nintendo Space World. This version of the game was only 50% complete, and only about 2% of the mapping was finished. It was later shown at E3 1996, with one of the showings having around 30 Nintendo 64s set up for more people to play the game. Super Mario 64 was first released in Japan on June 23rd, 1996, as one of the 3 launch games for the Nintendo 64, alongside Pilot Wings 64 and Saikyo Habu Shogi. It was later released in North America in September 1996 and in Europe in March 1997. Let's go on to sales. During its first 3 months of sale in North America, the game sold more than 2 million copies and grossed $140 million, equivalent to $231 million in 2020. In the United States by December 1996, becoming the best-selling video game of 1996 in the United States. During the first 3 months of 97, it was the second best-selling console game in the United States at 523,000 units. By early 2001, it had sold 5.5 million units in the United States. It was the best-selling game in the United States between 1995 and 2002, with 5.9 million units sold in the US by 2002. At the 1999 Melia Festival in Cannes, it won a gold prize for revenues above 21 million euro, or $27 million, equivalent to $43 million in 2020. In the European Union during the previous year, by March 2008, Super Mario 64 sold 11.8 million copies worldwide, being the best-selling Nintendo 64 game. By 2015, Super Mario 64 was the 12th most sold Mario game, with 11.91 million copies sold. The game had become the second most popular game on Wii's Virtual Console by June 2007, behind Super Mario Bros. Super Mario 64 DS. An enhanced remake, Super Mario 64 DS, was released for the handheld Nintendo DS in 2004. Yoshi, Luigi, and Wario are additional playable characters, and the game features improved graphics, slightly altered courses, new areas and enemies, more power stars to collect, touchscreen mini-games, and a multiplayer mode. Reviews were mostly positive, with critics praising the graphics and the add-ons to the original game, but criticizing the controls and multiplayer mode. By March 2008, 6.12 million copies had been sold worldwide. Other re-releases. A version of Super Mario 64 was used as a tech demo for the 64DD floppy drive at the 1996 Nintendo Space World Trade Show. Like Wave Race 64, Super Mario 64 was re-released in Japan on July 18, 1997 as Super Mario 64 Shindo Pack Taio version. This version adds support for the Rumble Pack peripheral and includes the voice acting from the English version. In 1998, Super Mario 64 was re-released in Europe and North America as part of the Budget Player's Choice line. It was released on the Wii Virtual Console service in late 2006. This release added enhanced resolution and compatibility with the GameCube and Classic controllers. The Shindo version was re-released in September 2020 on Nintendo Switch in the Super Mario 3D All-Stars collection. It was later re-released for the Nintendo Switch Online Plus expansion pack for the Nintendo 64 lineup in October 2021. The reception. Super Mario 64 received enthusiastic pre-release reception. The Wiz of GamePro commented on the 1995 Shoshinkai version's smoothness and how the action in the game was a blast despite the game being only 50% complete at the time. Ed Semrad of Electronic Gaming Monthly agreed. Larry Marcus of Alex Brown & Sons recalls Super Mario 64 being the most anticipated title of E3 1996, claiming that there was a field of teenagers jostling for a test run. Since its release, the game has received critical acclaim, getting a score of 94 out of 100 from review aggregator Metacritic, based on 13 reviews, and a score of 96% from review aggregator Game Rankings, based on 22 reviews. The game's design, variety of controls, and general use of 3D gameplay received praise from video game publications. Maximum gave it a 5 out of 5 and found its strongest points were the sense of freedom and the fact that its replayability reveals new areas and challenges. Official Nintendo Magazine called it the first truly convincing use of 3D in a platformer. Doug Perry of IGN agreed that the game transitioned the series to 3D perfectly. Electronic Gaming Monthly talked about the game's impact in their initial review, and later ranked it the 4th best console game of all time, arguing that it had breached the entire genre of 3D gaming while working flawlessly, save for the camera. Paul Davies of Computer and Video Games praised the 3D environment and said that it enhanced the interaction with the game, as well as describing the control scheme as intuitive and versatile. Jaunty Davies of All Game commented on the diversity of the gameplay and how many things there were to do in each course. Corby Dillard of Nintendo Life agreed, calling the variety the game's greatest genius. Nebojsa Radakovic of Game Revolution described the game as one of the few true 3D platformers. N64 Magazine compared the game to an enormous playground which was a pleasure to experiment in, but opined that the exploration element was slightly brought down by how many hints and tips there were. Victor Lucas of EP Daily agreed, praising the freedom but suggesting to players to skip all the signposts. Some reviewers were critical of the camera system. Next Generation noted that the game was less accessible than previous Mario games, frustrated by the camera's occasional erratic movements and lack of optimal angle. Nebojsa Radakovic of Game Revolution and Doug Perry of IGN added that the camera was sometimes blocked by or went through objects. Game Informer stated that by present-day standards, the camera would almost be considered broken. Nintendo Power also noted the learning curve of the shifting camera. In contrast, Corby Dillard of Nintendo Life claimed that the camera didn't have any problems and that it succeeded at helping the player traverse complex environments. Paul Davies simple and not detracting from the details of the game world. GamePro particularly praised the combination of unprecedented technical performance and art design, calling it the most visually impressive game of all time. Paul Davies of Computer and Video Games described the graphics as so amazing you find yourself stopping to admire them. Jaunty Davies of Allgame called the visuals phenomenal and the frame rate respectable. Doug Perry of IGN found the graphics simple but magnificent, and that the excellent animation and frame rate fulfilled Miyamoto's dream of creating an interactive cartoon, a sentiment shared by Next Generation. Nino Allegoropoulos of Hyper called it the best-looking console game to date and opined that its high resolution and frame rate for the time made it look infinitely better than a cartoon. Accolades. Super Mario 64 earned numerous awards, including various Game of the Year honors by members of the gaming media and Nintendo's own best-selling Player's Choice selection. It has been placed high on the greatest games of all time list by many reviewers, including IGN, Game Informer, Edge, Official Nintendo Magazine, Electronic Gaming Monthly, and Nintendo Power. Electronic Gaming Monthly awarded it a Gold Award in its initial review, and it won Electronic Gaming Monthly's Game of the Year for both Editor's Pick and Reader's Pick, and Nintendo 64 Game of the Year, Adventure Game of the Year, and Best Graphics. Super Mario 64 became the first game to receive a perfect score from Edge. At the 1997 Computer Game Developers Conference, it was given Spotlight Awards for Best Use of Innovative Technology, Best Console Game, and Best Game of 1996. British magazine Maximum gave it a Maximum Game of the Month award, making it the only import game predating its international release to win that honor, and called it the greatest game the magazine had ever reviewed. Digitizer ranked it the best game of 1997, above Final Fantasy VII as runner-up. The legacy. Super Mario 64 was key to the early success of and anticipation for the Nintendo 64. Lee Hutchinson, a former Babbage's employee, notes how the game was spurred by a feverish video game press, and how the success of the game defined the rule that a wide variety of launch games were necessary for broad appeal. Eventually, the Nintendo 64 lost much of its market share to Sony's PlayStation, partly due to its cartridge and controller design decisions, which were reportedly implemented by Miyamoto for Super Mario 64. In 2012, Super Mario 64 was among the 80 entries in the Smithsonian American Art Museum's Art of Video Games exhibit. Though not the first 3D platformer or 3D Nintendo game, PC Magazine's K. Thor Jensen considers Super Mario 64 to be the first truly realized 3D platformer by these criteria: innovations in player character personality, intuitive, perfectible gameplay, and integration of camera control into core gameplay, which he called the medium's true evolutionary leap. Influence. Super Mario 64 set many precedents for 3D platformers as one of the most influential video games. Game Daily wrote that it defined the 3D platform experience. It is acknowledged by OneUp.com for pioneering the transition of a 2D series into full 3D. Games TM said many game companies, including Nintendo, have tried to develop a platform game to match Super Mario 64. Super Mario 64 is known for its non-linear open freedom, which has been acclaimed by video game developers. Its central hub world provides a safe tutorial and a level selector, and is a staple of the 3D platform genre. In the 3D transition, many of the series' conventions were rethought drastically, placing emphasis on exploration domination over traditional platform jumping or hop and bop action. Though some disputed its quality, others argued that it established an entirely new genre for the series. Its mission-based level design inspired game designers such as Martin Hollis, producer and director of Rare's GoldenEye 007. Dan Houser, a prominent figure in the development of the Grand Theft Auto series, stated, "Anyone who makes 3D games who says they've not borrowed something from Mario or Zelda of the Nintendo 64 is lying." Tetsuya Nomura, a leading designer at Square Enix, stated in 2016 that Super Mario 64 prompted the creation of the Kingdom Hearts series. Chris Sutherland, who served as the lead designer for Banjo-Kazooie, agreed that Super Mario 64 set the benchmark for 3D platformers and claimed that any other game in the genre on the Nintendo 64 would inevitably be compared with Super Mario 64. Super Mario 64 introduced a free-floating camera that can be controlled independently of the character to increase freedom of exploration and fluid control in a 3D world. Super Mario 64 designers created a dynamic virtual video camera that turns and accelerates according to the character's actions, operated by the in-game character Lakitu. This camera system became the standard for 3D platform games. Nintendo Power stated the camera control scheme is what transitioned platform games into 3D, and that the game, along with The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time, blazed trails into the 3D era. Edge said Super Mario 64 changed gamers' expectations of 3D movement forever. The Nintendo 64's analog stick affords more precise and wide-ranging character movements than the digital D-pads of other consoles, and Super Mario 64's use of this was novel. At the time, 3D games generally allow the player to either control the character in relation to a fixed camera angle or in relation to the character's perspective. Super Mario 64's innovative controls are fully analog and interpret a 360-degree range of motion into navigation through a 3D space relative to the camera. The analog stick allows for precise control over subtleties such as running speed. Electronic Gaming Monthly in 2005 ranked Super Mario 64 the most important game since they began publication in 1989, stating that while there were 3D games before it, Nintendo's was the first to get the control scheme right. In July 2021, a pristine sealed copy of Super Mario 64 was auctioned for $1,560,000, the largest amount ever paid for a video game. Heritage Auctions video games specialist said, "It seems impossible to overstate the importance of this title not only to the history of Mario and Nintendo, but to video games as a whole." Rumors, conspiracy theories, and glitches. Rumors spread rapidly after the game's release. The most popular was a pervasive rumor that Luigi was an unlockable character. In 1996, IGN offered a prize of $100 if a player could find Luigi, but after 1 week, he wasn't found. Fueling the rumor was a very blurry message on a statue in the courtyard of Princess Peach's castle, thought to say, "L is real 2401. This was disproved in 1998 when a fan received a letter from Nintendo that the programmers included the text as a joke and it wasn't supposed to say anything. In July 2020, the unused assets for Luigi from the scrapped multiplayer mode were discovered in the game's files in an event known as the Nintendo Giga Leak. Conspiracy theories about the game became popular in 2020 and were grouped into the Super Mario 64 iceberg, with the less likely theories representing places closer to the bottom of the ocean. One popular rumor was the Wario apparition, based on an E3 1996 presentation with Charles Martinet voicing a disembodied Wario head. Some fans believed that the Wario head remained in some copies of the game, which was part of another theory that every copy of Super Mario 64 is personalized. Players used glitches to reach previously unreachable parts of the game, including a coin that had not been collected until 18 years after release. Speedrun techniques included the Lakitu skip, bob-omb clip, and the infamous backwards long jump glitch, the latter of which was patched in the Super Mario 3D All-Stars re-release. In 2013, YouTuber Vinesauce posted a collection of clips of corruptions of the game, replicated with a program named Naughty. Panenkoic's 2012's highly technical analysis of Super Mario 64 glitches and mechanics have been covered many times in the video game press. Fan projects. The following is a list of fan remakes, ROM hacks, and projects created by fans of Super Mario 64. Super Mario 64 Chaos Edition, a PC-emulated version of the original that loads codes which cause bizarre behavior. The game received coverage after streaming ensemble Vinesauce posted a playthrough of the game. Super Mario Run 64, converting the game into a 2.5D running game in the spirit of Super Mario Run. Super Mario 64 Online, enabling online multiplayer. It was taken down after a copyright strike by Nintendo and was later re-uploaded and renamed to Net 64. Super Mario 64 Maker, a Mario Maker-like level editor. Super Mario 64 Odyssey, featuring levels based on Super Mario Odyssey and adding its mechanic of possessing enemies by throwing Mario's hat. Super Mario 64 Last Impact, an original game that incorporates elements from other Mario games, such as the Fire Flower from Super Mario Bros., the Flood Cannon from Super Mario Sunshine, and the Bee Mushroom from Super Mario Galaxy. Super Mario 64 Ocarina of Time, in which The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time world is recreated in Super Mario 64's engine with new gameplay elements, puzzles, and a story. Open World Mario 64, a Battle Royale style mod set on a huge map made up of all Super Mario 64 levels in the style of Fortnite Battle Royale and PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds. First-person Mario 64 that changes the camera mode to first-person, often making the game much more challenging due to how the game demands acrobatic movements and how the game doesn't render objects when they're too close to the camera. Super Mario 64 Plus, featuring a new permadeath option, bug fixes, and improved camera system and 60 FPS emulation. And lastly, Super Mario 64 HD, a high-definition remake of the first level of Super Mario 64, Bob-omb Battlefield, using the Unity game engine. The project was taken down following a copyright claim by Nintendo. In 2019, fans decompiled the original ROM image into C source code, allowing Super Mario 64 to be natively ported to any system. In 2020, fans released a Windows port with support for widescreen displays and 4K resolution. Nintendo enlisted a law firm to remove videos of the port and its listings from websites. Fans created ports for several more platforms, including Nintendo 3DS, PlayStation 2, PlayStation Vita, Dreamcast, and Android. Its successors. A sequel was planned for the 64DD under the codename Super Mario 128. In July 1996, Nintendo insiders stated that Miyamoto was assembling a team consisting mostly of developers who had worked on Super Mario 64. Miyamoto mentioned at the 1997 E3 convention that he was just getting started on the project. The project was canceled due to its lack of progress and the commercial failure of the 64DD. Super Mario 64 successors Super Mario 3D World are departures from the open-ended design, instead focused on platforming reminiscent of 2D games. The Nintendo Switch game Super Mario Odyssey returned to Super Mario 64's open design. And in medical studies, in 2013, a study was conducted to see the plasticity effects on the human brain after playing Super Mario 64, chosen for its navigation element and the ability to play in a three-dimensional environment for at least 30 minutes every day for 2 months. The study concluded that doing the previously mentioned activity caused the gray matter, a major part of the central nervous system, to increase in the right hippocampal formation and the right dorsolateral prefrontal cortex, brain areas thought to contribute to spatial navigation, working memory, and motor planning. In 2017, where adults were randomized into 3 groups, a control group, a group that took online piano lessons, and a group that played a 3D platform game, i.e. Super Mario 64, for 6 months, at least 30 minutes per day, and at least 5 days a week. At the end of the study, the control group had suffered from a decrease in gray matter. The music group had an increase, mostly in the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex and cerebellum, and the Super Mario 64 group also had an increase, mostly in the hippocampus and cerebellum. Another study conducted by NeuroImage in 2017 divided 48 people into 2 groups, one as a control group and another that played Super Mario 64 DS for at least 30 minutes a day for 2 months. The highlight of the study was that the group that experienced video game training had increased hippocampal activity. The article hypothesized that the training had caused changes in attentional and memory processes. Well, there's the article. And now comes the ugly truth where I tell you I never finished the game. I've played it a handful of times. So, in this article, I forgot where it was. This was a very long one. This one's going to be like a 45-minute, 50-minute video probably. But at some point, it talked about how one of Miyamoto's design choices was to obviously make it cartridge-based, because come on, it's Nintendo. Cartridges are their thing. Hold on, I'm going to move this pillow. So, those are their thing. And then also the new controller. Okay, the N64 controller was so weird, man. Was it kind of like the GameCube one? Just like where it's got the little thing in the center, they made it look like a spaceship, kind of. I apologize for my stomach grumbling, by the way, but they made the controller look like, like a spaceship, a strange thing on the center. Dude, all I want is, going back from Nintendo, just give me the gamepad and then give me the AB, or obviously, like PlayStation, XAB0, whatever the hell, triangle, blah, blah, blah. I play Halo now, so obviously I want the toggle, and, I'm used to thumbsticks and whatnot, but, man, that really threw me for a loop. The controller of the N64 really threw me for a loop, and also, full honesty here, Killer Instinct was my jam. That's what I was playing on the Nintendo 64, not Mario as much. I played a good amount of Mario 64, but way more Killer Instinct and other games as they came along, and it is very funny. The reason I'm bringing it up and referencing the article is I was one of those people that wound up jumping onto the PlayStation bandwagon and kind of, ditching the N64 for a little while, just because of the play control, and the PlayStation controller more closely resembled the Super Nintendo controller, which is what I So, yeah, I can see why N64 kind of shot itself in the foot with the controller. Anyway, what else was in here? There was some cool stuff, and I forgot what. But I think we're going to call it good because I have so many other things to get to, including, well, Mario itself. Actually, I can even show you, and it's on another tab. The actual Mario page. We have to do that one, which was requested by several people. So we'll move on to Mario, maybe even sometime this week. Just as a heads up, I believe I'm going to be pumping out videos. My goal in this is to kind of assemble a whispering, I don't even want to call it whispering, just a relaxing library of Wikipedia articles that you can reference when you want to go to sleep. It's not as much like a daily challenge that's important to me, even though it is fun, but I found that just trying to do one video a day was kind of holding me back. What I should be doing is making as many as I can, as long as the quality is still there, and the edit, the audio is still good, as long as I can maintain that. I want to just do as many as possible so people have different videos that they can pick and choose from, since all the viewers, some of you like movies, some of you like video games, some of you like both, some of you like just the food videos. So I think the answer to that is make as many as possible, right? So people can choose. That's all I got. I'm going to move on to the next one. I'm thinking Natalie Portman or Olivia Munn or Megan Fox. I gotta go Megan Fox because I promised her. Okay, that's all. Everyone, hope your holiday was good. I hope your Christmas was good. And I will talk to you in the comments. Bye-bye.